These are particularly uncomfortable looking chairs.
Intentionally to make us go fast, I think.
Probably. Afternoon, everyone. I suppose, seeing as you have, let's jump straight in, you have about over 100,000 users in about 170 countries, I believe. It means you're in a good position to tell us whether email is dead or not, but I suspect, seeing as you're doing so well, we kind of know the answer in advance.
Yeah, God, I hope not, because if it is, I'll be out of a job, which would kind of suck. Let's do a little bit of audience participation, although it's kind of hard to see. How many of you here have a smartphone? Yeah, pretty much everybody. How many of you have checked email on your smartphone in the last 30 minutes? Yeah. How many of you intend to check email during this session? Yeah. Me too.
We won't take it personally.
So look, I mean, today there are 4 billion email users on the planet. That number is forecasted to grow to 5 billion by 2018. If you were to draw a Venn diagram between internet users and email users, it would look nearly like a solar eclipse. So from a user perspective, clearly it's still alive and well. From an email marketer perspective, email still far and away drives the highest ROI. There was a study done that says for every dollar spent in email marketing, there's a $44 kind of return on investment. Last year, email was identified as the best digital channel for retaining customers. And finally, email is 40 times more effective than social media at acquiring new customers. I think all of those stats add up to the fact that the industry is still growing at 20% year on year and is forecasted to be a $6.5 billion revenue industry by 2018. So to me, that suggests that email is far from dead.
So would it be fair to say then that perhaps rather than email is dead, perhaps that has kind of a pure issue or an image problem? We have, I think the head of Slack recently called email the cockroach of the internet, saying as it wouldn't die, but I think that was more to do with productivity than actually marketing. So do you feel from your perspective that there is a slight resistance there to from marketers to adopting email?
Yeah, so a couple of things there. On the flight over here, I picked up the most recent issue of Time magazine, the one that's got two pieces of bacon on the front cover, which suggests that anything that is really good is actually bad for you. But further in the magazine, there was a big kind of 2-page spread, and it said email killer Slack. And it was interesting because I read that article. My viewpoint is this. Productivity tools are actually helping pull conversations out of email, like Slack. We use Slack at our company. It's really great. It pulls a lot of interactions out of email, which is a really good thing because it cleans up the inbox. Google Inbox is another tool, really helps you manage email much more efficiently. The reason I think people have kind of historically had email anxiety, including myself, is that on average, people in an office get about 150 emails a day during the workday. That's one email every 3 to 4 minutes, and that creates anxiety if you're not responding. All these tools are helping clear that out a little bit, which creates an incredible opportunity, I think, for marketers, permission-based marketers, to send email to their prospects or to their customers. Now, that email has to be a lot better than it was historically. It needs to be beautiful, which is to say that it needs to be representative of the brand, and it needs to look great on a mobile device. 44% of email is opened on a mobile device. It needs to be personalized, so it needs to really kind of speak to you, and it needs to be timely. And I think if you can hit those 3 things, you can be incredibly successful with email.
I think I'll come back to those ones in a minute because I think you're putting your finger on what it takes actually to do a good job of email marketing. But it was one of the speakers earlier on the marketing stage this morning made a very good point about how we're hardwired to be drawn to the new and the shiny and the innovative. And I'm just wondering again, another question for you about how email is perceived. Is one of the problems that we're also goddamn used to it at this stage, and it has in some ways become a bit of it's an issue. It's other people's problems come into your inbox. In some ways, do we overlook the potential of email because we are so used to it now?
Yeah, I think from a marketer perspective, human nature is to be attracted to kind of the next best thing, the shiny thing, right? If you guys have seen Minority Report, where Tom Cruise is walking and advertising is following him, that's not necessarily a future that I kind of want to be part of, but there's all these really great and exciting technologies that will actually ultimately enable that. And so I know that marketers love to experiment with social, with push, with a variety of different ways to capture attention, because we in fact are in an attention economy. But at the end of the day, email, which has been around as long as the internet, really probably even longer, is the kind of the thoroughbred, the workhorse in being able to capture users' attention. So I think people will continue to play. I think marketing is really a marketing cocktail, but in that marketing cocktail, email is the core base alcohol.
Yeah. And then, like, surely because email has been around for so long, there should be a kind of a fairly mature infrastructure of metrics and gathering and performance and knowing that you're doing a good job. Have people kind of got that fully yet, or are we still at a point that because there has been so much innovation and so many shiny baubles have been produced, that people have, like, they've gone, okay, there's email, I did that for a while, and now I've moved on to something else, but they haven't fully understood what they've got on their hands when they're looking at email marketing?
Yeah, first of all, I think that's a really great question. Email metrics are evolving. I think kind of historically, when people thought about successful email metrics, they thought about open rates and click rates. But those are like web visits, which used to be the way that you judge success when you launched a website. Those are not kind of the most appropriate metrics to measure today. A really well-implemented email marketing platform will actually integrate with a lot of user data, and based on the integration to that user data, be able to track a user's behavior through to purchase. So really, email, if done right and if integrated as part of an overall customer's journey, should be able to get you not open and click rates, but actually ROI. How much dollars is this campaign actually driving? The challenge with that historically has been that the systems that enable you to do that have been largely focused on enterprise customers, right? They're incredibly complex and they're very expensive. Which is why this phrase marketing automation is powerful, but has relatively low adoption rates. And again, focused on kind of the Fortune 5,000, at Campaign Monitor, one of the things that we're doing is we're liberating that. We're making it available to the Fortune 5 million so that a do-it-yourself marketer can kind of do these things. That do-it-yourself movement, which made it really easy to build websites, which made it really easy to launch an e-commerce store, is now making it much easier to build a more sophisticated kind of email journey for a consumer.
And if that's the case, then, if what we're finding is that, and we're finding it across the board in lots of places in terms of online marketing, that there are people like Campaign Monitor and other tools that are unpacking and making it easier for people to get to grips with how they should be doing this right, are there then, from your perspective, is that exposing either skill sets that there might be an issue with, that people are trying to get to grips with it, but they're not sure exactly how they should be doing it, or cultural issues about how they think about their consumer, how they reach out to them, what their touch points are?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So historically, the way we've seen email marketers work is they have a concept for a campaign, and then they go to a developer to implement that concept. These tools are making that much easier so that you actually don't have to go to the developer after it's been integrated for the first time. Creativity and the ability to iterate and test goes back to the marketer. So I think it's opening up a much broader market in terms of skill set. Culturally, I think you have to be very careful with kind of that power now, right? It's not about delivering as many emails as possible. It's about delivering the most relevant email that's personalized to that user at the most appropriate time. So success, again, isn't mass blasting. Success is personalized messaging down to the individual. And so thinking needs to shift and change as to how to do that.
That does sound like to be a bit of a challenge. I know myself that an awful lot of times I used to be a copywriter, so I used to write a lot of emails. And the mentality for a lot of clients is, I need to get my message out there, I'll just push. And it's a push mentality rather than what you're talking about, which is far more nuanced. It's almost trying to get the message across when people are most going to be receptive to it. How have you seen other people adopt to that challenge? Is there particular things that you've seen that people go, oh, I get that now, that's how I should be doing things?
Yeah, so I think there's still a place for push, right? I don't know if you guys have read, there's been a resurgence in newsletters. Like, newsletters are, a perfect example of push. And so a company will send out a bunch of content to a series of users, and I consider that kind of more push. The personalized is more pull, where based on the user's profile, based on their behavior, based on the interactions that you've had with them, you can send them content that's much more relevant, right? Now, to do that, you have to be smarter about the business process. It's not as simple as push a button, mass email. You actually have to map out that user journey. You have to create really interesting segments of users and target them with different content, again, based on behavior. So this is a lot more planning than execution. Once you've planned it and figured it out, then it's much easier to execute and you can kind of iterate through it. I'll tell you, from our customers, some of the things that we're seeing in the power of personalization, something as simple as even just personalizing the subject line increases open rates by 29%. If you want to start to get more powerful, when you create segments are groupings of users based on age, sex, demographic, purchasing history, behavior, the smarter you can become about capturing that data and creating segments, the more powerful these segments become, and they drive the content in an email that goes out. What we've seen with our customers is a 700% ROI, like actual revenue improvement, from the ones that use segments over the ones that do kind of just general mass blast.
So can you talk me through then how a campaign would typically be kind of broken up into blocks like that? Because I'm really interested in that. Like what you're describing is much more like a user journey than I sent something out, got them into part of a conversion funnel, and there we go, we got some money out of them at the end. Is there a way that people need to start thinking about an email campaign? What you've said is it's almost much more like a kind of piece of UX planning than just like send out an email. Do people need to? What are the constituent parts of that? And it sounds also like what you're saying is that data is a key issue. Typically, do you see people onboarding more data from third parties or reusing their data in a new and innovative way?
Yeah, I think you've just said it, right? Email marketing is about campaigns. Campaigns are a multi-step journey. So it's not just send this one email, we'll see how it did, and then we'll send another email. It is much more mapping the overall journey of a consumer. That journey isn't just an email. That journey is on the website, it's in your app, it's everywhere that you interact with the user. It may be in a physical store. And so when you're mapping journeys, you map journeys across all of this, because the last thing that you want to do is have somebody in marketing responsible for, let's say, SMS push, and they're pushing their messages, and then the email marketing department is sending them email messages, and then somebody else in store is doing something else, right? You want all of that coordinated across the board. So there's much more coordination between, I think, all parts of marketing. The web, the app, the in-store, and email marketing is kind of a part of it. You map a buyer's journey together. What is the experience that you want somebody to go through? What's the appropriate and most relevant message to send them at a various step in the journey or based upon what they do? So again, it kind of comes back to measure twice, cut once. Yeah, okay. But the companies that are doing it well and the tools like Campaign Monitor that make it easier to do are kind of increasing the opportunity, I think, for SMBs.
Just to go back to that point, because I think for my mind, we're talking a little bit in abstractions. Can you give me an out-of-the-box kind of maybe white labeled, like not mention who we're talking about, but a nice way for anyone here who's actually thinking about, okay, I should probably adopt a slightly more modern approach to email, how you go about splitting up the constituent parts of the whole kind of marketing suite, and what each part, what you should expect from each part, and then how you kind of put them all together into this part of this kind of nice campaign that seems seamless for whoever's getting the communication.
Yeah, I mean, I think to map out an entire marketing journey is going to take a lot more time.
Well, in kind of broad strokes, maybe.
I'll give you an example of a company that I think does quite a good job and punches above their weight class, and that's a brand called Rip Curl. So Rip Curl is a global brand. Hopefully many of you know them here. One of the things that they do with Campaign Monitor is they deeply understand who their users are. The difference between men versus women, the difference between kind of surfers and folks who skate, let's say, kind of for example. They also understand seasonality. So if they want to promote a new product that's both in-store and they want to promote it digitally, they know the difference that when it's summertime, they may promote board shorts to you. If it's wintertime, it may be a full wetsuit, right? And so they take a lot of this data about their users and about different promotions that they want to run, and then they'll execute a campaign that's intelligent enough to say, it's one campaign, but this particular person that this email is going to go out to, in the body of the email, right? It's going to be messaged similarly, but in the core body of the email, it's going to be personalized to this user. So if it's summertime and it's a woman who's living in San Francisco, they might still actually send her a wetsuit because summertime in San Francisco is really cold. But it's that intimate understanding of that user and that connection to being able to bring data in that will then send the right message to that person when maybe they've actually visited a store and not made a purchase, right?
We've kind of focused a little bit on the kind of technological side a little bit up to now, and it's one of the things you mentioned earlier, aside from something needing to be personalized and timely, it needs to be beautiful as well. Just from a design or aesthetics perspective, are you seeing email marketing kind of mature on that level? Is your typical kind of inbox able to handle nicer stuff these days? How is the design side of the business evolving?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big part of our kind of core user base historically has been agencies and designers. And I think that's because marketers know that the more beautifully designed something is that shows up in your inbox, the higher probability that you'll pay attention, right? Just like websites have evolved from the mid-90s to what they look like today, email has also similarly evolved. And I think when designing these emails, you have to understand that if a user receives an email that looks ugly, most likely they're just going to swipe it away. Or if they receive an email, and I'm sure many of you guys in the room have, and opened it on their mobile device, but it's not formatted for mobile, and you've got to kind of like scroll around to try to understand it, that's going to get swiped away. And if it doesn't mirror the brand experience that you're creating on the website and in your store, that's going to create kind of a dissonance for the customer, right? So one of our customers, Topshop, if you guys know who Topshop is, really great European brand, elegant, beautiful. When you go into a store, you have a very specific experience that they've curated for you. When you go online, that experience carries through. Well, now in email, that experience has to carry through, or they've broken a bit of that programming that they've been doing with the user. And so in today's world and with today's tools, you can do a much better job of delivering on that brand promise, on kind of that pixel-perfect interaction in an inbox.
Strange one. Do you guys yourselves, Campaign Monitor, use email marketing? And if so, how are you doing it? What's your take on it? How do you
No,
walk the walk
we don't
yourselves?
use it.
It doesn't work.
No, of course we use email marketing. It's one of our most powerful tools. Interestingly enough, when we were off stage with Neil, who was just up here earlier, he said email marketing is one of their largest drivers of traffic. Yeah. And so I think that this, kind of continues to be for all companies, whether you're a B2C, meaning you're selling to consumers, or you're a B2B, email still continues to be kind of a large driver of both new customers, of retention, and of revenue. And so at Campaign Monitor, we use it religiously. It's an important part of how we communicate with our customers.
And then slightly off the beaten track in terms of email, I know that you act as an advisor and a mentor to an awful lot of companies and startups and entrepreneurs. So I think given the type of audience that we have here, I'm just wondering if there is a particular type of advice you find that you're very commonly given to people, whether they're starting up something very innovative themselves, whether they're looking at marketing tools, and email would obviously be part of that. But how do you find that you're interacting with these people and offering them your advice from your perspective?
Yeah, so the first thing that I say to entrepreneurs, I've been a 4-time entrepreneur, the first thing that I say to entrepreneurs is be really passionate about the problem you're solving. There are going to be a lot of challenges along the way, many, many ups and downs. If you're not super passionate, you're going to find reasons to quit. Most startups fail, so if you don't have that deep commitment, you most likely will fail. So that's kind of number one. The second thing, if there's this great entrepreneur who wrote a book called Steve Blank. He wrote 4 Steps to an Epiphany. It was much of the foundation for the lean startup movement. If you guys have heard of that, one of the things that he talks about is get out of the building. Don't imagine the idea in your mind, but very quickly, early on, get out to customers, tell them what you're doing, get their feedback, have them become architects in the journey with you. It's incredibly important. How many entrepreneurs I've seen build this really elaborate product and then find out that nobody gives a shit is heartbreaking. So get out of the building, share your idea early. And people are the most important thing. At the end of the day, there's nothing more important than hiring incredibly smart people who close out things that you're not as good at. You want to challenge yourself. Look at Stuart Butterfield, who was on the stage kind of earlier with Slack. The 2 companies he founded actually were gaming companies. Neither gaming company succeeded. The first one turned into Flickr. The second one turned into Slack. It was all about the team identifying the opportunities and executing.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Great.
Cheers.
Thank you.